What a fitting way to begin the corner kick here on CWTAP, folks. My name is Alex Fydryszewski. I'll be with you up until 9 o'clock, where we talk the beautiful game. And I guess the FIFA anthem is a pretty good way to kick things off today as the firestorm continues over in Switzerland. Michel Platini and Sepp Blatter, who stepped down, then didn't step down, and then bragged about how he didn't step down and step down at the same time, have been handed bans for, well, among other things, passing money under the table, and a variety of other violations, which we're not going to get into all of those details on. And, well, it's just the latest black eye for a global governing body of the game since the U.S. Department of Justice began its investigations into allegations of massive and widespread corruption in FIFA regarding specifically bids for the 2018-2022 World Cups in Russia and Qatar, and then it just started to spiral out of control from there, and now everyone and anyone and their brother seems to be in trouble with FIFA and the U.S. DOJ. There's reports that go back to linking South Africa, and even all the way back past that to the United States hosting the World Cup. People have been arrested and interrogated and investigated over that. Thus far, USSF President Sunil Gulati has avoided the chopping block. We'll remain vigilant to see how that situation develops, but to try and join and make some sense out of all of this FIFA shenanigans, the coach joins us to start off the program tonight, and then we've got a whole litany of things that we need to talk to. This actually wasn't something we were planning on, Coach. It jumped at us today.
Amazing, Alex. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to be on with you once again in this fine evening before Christmas. Just wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Have a great holiday, everybody, and Merry Christmas to Michel Platini and Sepp Blatter also.
I don't even know what to necessarily make of it at this point. Obviously, the details will continue to evolve, but this goes back to a payment. From what it sounded like, from when I was listening to some other pundits today on satellite, goes back to some payments for work that was maybe or maybe not done back to the late 1990s. So who knows really what's going on at FIFA. I'm certainly not going to throw any stones on the fire or irons into the fire, whatever you'd like to call it. But, you followed this, I've followed this, and it's just the latest calamity, if you'd like to call it, for the global governing body. This one was internal. This one's not related, from what it's, at least not yet, it's not related to what the Department of Justice has been investigating regarding Copa America Centenario and some of these other things that are happening. But as far as that goes, we've still got Copa America Centenario coming to the United States, but where does this end? I mean, how far
Alex,
down?
Alex, is my question. Who could potentially be passing judgment on these guys that's clean?
Well, right. Who at FIFA can sit there, right, and then say, you, and that guy in the corner, you're all out. You're out.
That is just, it's just...
There's...
FIFA, the two most corrupt sporting things in the world were FIFA and the Olympics.
Right.
And everybody's been bought off, as we know, Joao Havelange, who knew Sepp Blatter, who knew, the cities where the Olympics went to the cities where the World Cup went. They're all tied hand in hand, basically. They're all friends. They all figured out how to do it. Listen, they all got huge payoffs. I mean, let's be honest. I could see Russia hosting the World Cup. They're a legitimate soccer country. I have no problem with that. So there might have been a little cash pass back and forth. Qatar was just an absolute joke that they were chosen over some of the countries.
I think that...
And that's what started it.
Yeah.
The Qatari thing ticked off our DOJ, because let's face it, we really had, I mean, Qatar, there was a stadium.
Right.
You know, how much money did that, some oil sheik put into their,
and those are things we may, it's a matter of
what went down, and
right.
The Brits were ticked off, the Americans were ticked off, the Australians were ticked off, and, what are you going to do? I mean, it is what it is. The Russians bought the Winter Olympics and the World Cup, which is,
it happens. I mean, it's obviously
right?
something that and what's I think even crazier is that when we look at this is a trail that goes back not just to Russia or now with Qatar. This is something that it looks like has been going on for quite some time as a standard operating procedure. Where if you want the tournament, you have to ante up with, if you want to call it the Halliburton briefcase, that the duffel bag full of cash. I don't know how this worked. I mean, I get, I don't even know where to begin. Where did the DOJ track these deposits and where they're coming from? This could unravel even further. Russia and Qatar are still away, 2018, 2022 are still a ways away. And I think that, you make a good point. We all looked at Russia and said, something doesn't seem right here. But they have stadiums. It's a relatively safe place. Like, we're going down the checklist of, there's hotels, there's transport. Qatar now, I think when you look at the bid, on paper, forget whether it was feasible or not. On paper, it sounds like not a bad idea. We're going to build this gigantic, basically, soccer city in our country, and we are going to build air-conditioned stadiums, and you're gonna check off a lot of those boxes. But at the same time, does the country have the infrastructure to host the World Cup? And at that point, that's where even at FIFA, you saw some of those internal reports saying, well, hotels, airports, transportation, and then let's not even get into, because this isn't politics, let's not even get into security, societal and cultural issues that were going to arise. Let's not even go there, because that's a whole different show for a whole different channel.
Right.
But it's certainly, I think, eye-opening now that FIFA stepped up and looked at these two guys and said, well, it's time we really do start to clean up our act. And you don't know if some of these other guys in FIFA are saying, well, maybe if we step up our end, maybe the DOJ steps off theirs a little, give and take. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm not one to speculate. This has gone beyond soccer. For me, I like you same way. We'll talk transfers, we'll talk rumors, we'll talk formations. Justice, I didn't go to NYU Law School. I went to Moravian College and studied history, so I can tell you 10 years from now why this happened. Once we have all the documentation, I can write a dissertation about it or something. But in its present situation, this is pretty interesting just to sit back, I think, as not just an analyst, but as a fan and watch. And it's just, all right, well, now UEFA, their head is falling. FIFA's head, what's next? CONCACAF has fallen. A lot of the guys in CONMEBOL have gone. What's next? And for FIFA, now that I think they're going to have to look maybe, what do you do about these two World Cup bids? Do you keep them where they are if you know that they've been corrupted and there's proof that, is coming out that they've been corrupted? Then what? Do you go back to a bidding process quickly, or do you pick a nation that's willing to do it? That opens up legal problems, and this is just the beginning. I think, as we were at the beginning last year, this is a new beginning today.
Yeah, I think it's not like you get a new commissioner. It's really a different problem, because it's such a world game, and we'll see where it all shakes out. It's a new story. We'll see if it has legs. We'll see if the DOJ is if there's a deal cut between the DOJ, if these guys resign, but I still think there's a lot more in terms of bribery and extortion and heading our way. So, Loretta Lynch and whoever will follow her in the DOJ as Attorney General eventually, the FBI, will have a long look at this whole process. And, I'm sure there's other countries involved here. Like I said, England is not happy. Australia was not happy. there's a lot of countries that felt they were really not given a fair shake here, so we'll see what happens. And I think, it'll be what it'll be. And, it's a black eye it's not just, it's the biggest black eye for soccer. But, as we've seen in soccer lore, it's been the norm
right?
With
bribery
fixing and referee fixing, bribery, game fixing. It's
right.
It happened in the NBA. It happened with baseball with Pete Rose and all those guys gambling. It happened with the steroid scandal. So every sport has
their issue.
Remember, how about baseball in the United States? How many? Everybody cheated.
Right. It's one of those things that, you see, again, you may never prove half the guys smacking the ball out of the park 75 times 500 feet because maybe it's the documentation, the paper trail's not there, but the speculation will be out there, and that's a black eye on, a generation of baseball players, even from when I was a child in middle school. I remember sitting at the Carroll's house. You were there, Mr. Carroll, Mr. Jensen, when Mark McGwire broke the home run record. And everybody in that room that was an adult was like, something's just not right here. He's going to smack 60. Sosa's going to smack 60. Then Bonds hit 70. And it just kind of spiraled from there. And then pitchers got in on the act. So baseball had its problems. Soccer, obviously, and this is the first time, though, it's hit globally. I think soccer, obviously, the Polish league had problems. Italy had problems, but...
Hey, you know what? You just move on. We move on to the game rather than the politics, and I think that's what we want to talk about now. And what happened in listen, big changes in Europe. Chelsea losing Mourinho, right?
Right. I think that this was a case of, for many folks, especially maybe Chelsea fans, they might have been getting a little trigger happy earlier on for him to be removed, but obviously Roman Abramovich this past week had enough. Another loss, and this time falling further and further back. Now, barely out of relegation. Chelsea will make that move, and he's out. It'll be interesting to see what type of permanent solution ends up coming into place there. But right now, for Chelsea, priority number one, I think, and I'm sure you'd probably agree, rather than most years where it's win the league, right now in January, it's going to be finding players they can bring in and move out if there's attitude issues that are going to just keep them in the Premiership right now.
But I agree.
And it's hard to believe.
I agree. It's time for him to go. He already said he wants the Manchester United job, but Mr. Mourinho, I think, you're going to have to, nobody, I don't know if Manchester United wants you.
Right, a vacation may be in order for Jose after this. And he's been very successful with very successful players. There were criticisms already, in the summer that they didn't make moves. They stood pat with really who they had. You can keep the same team as long as you keep them hungry. And at some point along the way, Jose lost that team. And I think it happens in sport, maybe a little more in soccer than in other sports, where eventually a coach loses his players sometimes, or players lose their coach one way or the other. Somebody grows frustrated on one side, and it sometimes degrades. And even at a club like Chelsea that's spending millions and millions of pounds, it can come back and really not go well if you have that falling out internally. And we don't know, what was going on the training pitch or in the locker room, but something obviously wasn't right there.
Right, I agree.
And speaking of Chelsea, there's rumors now coming out of the MLS camp up in French Canada that Didier Drogba may be bought out by Chelsea, not as a player, but to come back as an assistant coach. Now, I think if you were going to look at a situation like this is a guy who just came in, and Joey Saputo has invested quite a bit of money in this man, not just to score goals like he did in bunches at the end of the season, but if he was going to leave, I'd imagine that he would look to Chelsea for compensation for lost ticket sales, lost jersey sales, marketing deals, and more that go out the door if Drogba leaves. I imagine that the decision will ultimately rest with Didier unless the money is so crazy that they can't say no. But they did just turn down $5 million for Ignacio Piatti from an unnamed Argentinian side, so he obviously must not be that strapped for cash. So that I'm not sure what good does he do to Chelsea as an assistant coach if it's potentially only a 6-month stint.
I don't think it does anything, but maybe it don't do anything except the fact that he was Mr. Chelsea. He really was the heart and soul of Chelsea, and maybe the fact that he just is around those players to bring the confidence back is a big difference. I have to admit, I missed who's their coach now, because I did not see who was promoted into that job. Or they did not name anybody yet. That's the real question, right?
Chelsea have moved along. It's now Gus Hiddink.
Oh, Gus Hiddink took that job. I'm sorry. I did miss that.
And he is looking, from what most reports have called, he's the one who is looking for Didier Drogba. It's really him that wants to bring him in. Again, that's a decision that I think you'll see made over the next week or two, whether he's going to go or not. But there's certainly a lot on the table. Probably more to lose for Montreal than to gain if they lose him, but if Chelsea will kick you a lot of cash and you can go buy someone, then maybe it's not as big of a deal. But Drogba's he was the guy that Joey Saputo really was looking for, especially after he had gone down that Italian route with some stars, but Drogba was the francophone star that he really wanted. It'll be interesting to see if they move him along. I guess we'll come back to that as it happens. There's now a quote out from David Beckham as well. We'll keep it in MLS that he would love to have Zlatan Ibrahimovic come play for Miami Beckham FC, whatever it's going to be called. Now, he's got the franchise right, but don't you think he's jumping the gun just a little bit? He's got no stadium, no launch date, and by the time he gets going, Zlatan could be retired. So
I agree.
It's nice that I guess he's put that out there, but what kind of water and weight does it hold when you don't have a stadium?
Yeah, it doesn't really, and we'll see what transpires there in Montreal and in MLS and in North American Soccer League over the next couple of years, Alex. So. I'm visiting with your grandparents here in Linden. It's great to be here. I just wanted to give you, I'm glad I was able to call in. Duty calls here briefly, so I've got to make sure that I.
All right. Well, you better go make sure. You better go make sure that everything's all right, and better make sure that Graham's not chasing you with a rolling pin, or George isn't trying to kick you down the stairs. So.
I just wanted you to take care of one or two things here, but I wanted to thank you again for allowing me the pleasure to be on with you and your listeners and viewers today. And I look forward to being on the show again next week. So all right. Thanks again, Alex.
Hey, thank you very much. We'll take a short break here. Coach Dad joining us here on CWTAP. We will take, again, a short break here from one of our fine sponsors at Embassy Bank for the Lehigh Valley. I'll cover a little bit more of what I wanted to talk about, and then we'll take another break at 8:30, and then JJ Pepe will join us on CWTAP.
For the Lehigh Valley, it's in more than our name. The Lehigh Valley is in the values that Embassy Bank lives by and shares with our customers every working day. The Lehigh Valley is where Embassy Bank started and will stay, providing exceptional service for local families and businesses. Get the service and values you deserve at Embassy Bank for the Lehigh Valley. We're the Lehigh Valley's bank.
Holy
On behalf of all of the staff of CWTAP, we do wish you a very, very Merry Christmas. Alex Fydryszewski with you. We'd like to thank another one of our fine CWTAP sponsors, Shelby Construction of Freemansburg. Anywhere in eastern Pennsylvania, you can give them a call and they will give you a no-cost quote on services. Again, whether it's residential, commercial, light industrial, give Ernie a call. That's 610-360-5731, 610-360-5731. Shelby Construction, where quality always counts. Again, one of the very, very best construction companies in eastern Pennsylvania. Give Ernie a call today, 610-360-5731. Shelby Construction, where quality always counts. Now, again, we had mentioned with the coach, the NASL, making some moves this week as well. Miami FC has continued their impressive haul of foreign-born players, and this time they've nailed it with Argentine striker Dario Cvitanic. The 31-year-old striker brings a wealth of experience to the club. He also brings a wealth of goals to the club. He spent quite a bit of time with Ajax in the Dutch Eredivisie, Nice in Ligue 1, Pachuca in Liga MX. He's one of those players still on the fringe of his prime, and another one of those, as Coach and I talked about last week, quote, MLS-type signing, and it's another major coup for the NASL. His value, if you look it up on Transfer Market right now, transfermarkt.com, is €2 million, and barring another off-season splash, this guy probably enters the regular season of 2016 as the highest valued player in the entire NASL. And he's someone I'd imagine a lot of MLS teams would have loved to have on board. And then that begs the same question of, is this a sign of things to come that we talked about last week? Or as MLS moves younger, is the NASL going to be the league of choice for those older guys, maybe over 30, 31, for people who want to come to the United States and Canada, make good money and play soccer, but maybe as MLS improves, gets younger faster, pace might be an issue. He'll join Dane Richards, Jamaican international, former New York Red Bull, and Wilson Palacios of Honduras, who comes with significant experience from time in England. Their marquee signings thus far for Paolo Maldini and his former Italian national team and AC Milan backline mate Alessandro Nesta, who is the head coach. Also on the MLS front, it was on their website today, the Diego Forlan rumors once again swirling. 36, coming off a stint in Japan, currently playing for Peñarol in his home nation of Uruguay. When the Uruguayan legend is on his game, there's still some magic in those feet. But on the whole, what can he contribute, of course, will be a question. As with any older player, the travel in MLS is unlike anything else in the world outside of maybe the Russian League and maybe the A-League in Australia. It's extensive. You're traveling coast to coast, and as more teams come in, you could be going from, say Orlando to Vancouver, Vancouver to New England on a road swing if the schedule doesn't fall your way. How can these older players handle up with that travel and excessive summer heat, too? A lot of these players have spent their entire careers in cooler climates, if you will, more comfortable climates in Europe. Go to Dallas in July or August. I'll pass on that. When it's 100 and 90% humidity and, you start sweating as soon as you open your front door, I'll pass. That's certainly something to think about, and maybe why some of these players, these clubs are going a little bit younger. Again, we'll have JJ Pepe on in just about 5 or 6 minutes. Looking forward to having him on. The NPSL continues to expand nationwide. We work with the Bucksmont Torch here at CWTAP. Hopefully we'll be back with them in 2016. Did their games in 2015. Was happy to be the broadcast announcer for that. Junior Lone Star at Philadelphia. They're rejoining the Keystone Conference next year tentatively. And I saw JLS while we were covering the Sonic on WGPA just about 2 years ago. They've got one of the more talented lineups. They're very athletic and have a history now of producing several professional talents that have gone over to Europe and continued their careers. Most recently, it was Anthony Denor, right back, who was absolutely fantastic. He's in Finland now, and he was one of the better players in the MPSL. They've got a very, very nice talent base down there in Philadelphia. So Junior Lone Star will be back in the Keystone Conference next year. Looking forward to covering them when they take on the Bucksmont Torch. Again, we'll have JJ Pepe on to talk New York Red Bulls, so we'll hold off on that just a little bit. And then we also were hoping to talk with the coach about some of the top prospects right now coming out of Eastern Europe, and there's right now really some good ones in Poland that I think many of you will get to know over the next few years. I know a lot of folks will watch England and Germany and France, and some of these guys, they don't start out there. They're coming from Slovakia, they're coming from Romania or wherever. They may be playing in a league that's not getting that type of coverage. So we'll try to give you a little bit of insight as to some players who may be coming through the system in these countries that you should get to know or start to Google and check them out on Wikipedia at least. Maybe go on YouTube and check out some of their highlights from what they've done, at least in the last couple of months. There's a team right now, Cracovia Kraków, has two really good prospects right now. Latvian striker Denis Rakels, 15 goals in 20 matches. He's 23 years old. I'd imagine there will be some teams calling for him, if not in the winter, in the summer. And then Polish wunderkind Bartosz Kapustka is a 20-year-old. He's an attacking midfielder with poise beyond his years. Plays for the Polish national team. There's highlights of him on YouTube. I believe you can check out Scouting Polska is the handle that you can check out for his highlight. Absolutely fantastic young prospect out of Tarnów, which is just outside of the city of Kraków. Another Polish prospect to watch is Mariusz Stępiński from Ruch Chorzów. 11 goals this season. He's 20. Sky's the limit for him. And in their prime players, there's one in particular. He's a Hungarian of Serbian descent. His name's Nemanja Nikolic. He is the leading scorer in the Polish league right now, and he's on pace, I should say, to potentially break the Ekstraklasa single-season goal-scoring record. And there will be clubs knocking down the door for him in January at Ulica Łazienkowska that it may be tough to say no to some of these offers. He's on pace for, well, a goal a game plus, so he could get close to 40-45 if he stays out the season and Legia keeps feeding him the ball the way he does. Now, this is a guy who's also scored in the Hungarian league and for his national team, so there's starting to be a long body of work for a player like Nikolic that I think some of the bigger clubs, maybe in Germany, maybe in the Eredivisie, or even in the Premier League, might start to look at. And then Legia also poised to sell winger Michał Giro to Wolverhampton in England. There's a reported £500,000 offer for him. That's a hefty sum by Polish standards for especially a winger like Giro, who's fallen a little bit out of favor this year. He got hurt and has struggled to bounce back and regain his place in the lineup, but Wolves tried to come in and make a move in the summer for Giro. So if you're a Wolves fan or you're a fan of the championship, that's a name to watch out for in the coming weeks in the January transfer window. There's also two more players we'll talk about, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll have JJ Pepe on. Across the border in Slovakia, there's a midfielder for Trenčín named Matúš Bero. He's 20 years old, 10 goals through 17 matches. He's become a mainstay in their midfield over the course of the last 3 years. Currently in the top three there in Slovakia over the course of the last few years, the champions as well. The club itself, well connected to Western Europe. They take a lot of players on loan from Dutch nations and from England as well. They've had some players move in and out. So there could be a high-profile move for that young man within the next year or two as he continues to develop and outgrows, not just talent-wise, but financially will outgrow what that club in a smaller city by even Slovak standards can offer. And then finally, there's a 21-year-old Slovenian named Andraž Sporar. He's hot-handed striker at Olimpia Ljubljana. 46 goals in the last 3.5 seasons, 17 this year to lead the Slovenian league. Their players very often move to Italy, so that's another name if you like Serie A you may want to get to know. And there'll be more and more of them as we go along. Leagues like Slovenia, Slovakia, they're good proving grounds for teenagers as they grow into their early 20s, moving on to places like Poland or the Czech Republic, and then that paves the way and can open the door to the Bundesliga, the Premier League, the Championship, and the big bucks that come with those top 5 or 6 leagues. And we'll keep you in touch as the season goes on with some of these players. And through January, obviously, silly season is upon us. And when we get back, we will have JJ Pepe on to talk silly season as it relates to Red Bull New York and Matt Miazga, potentially Kamar Lawrence in there as well, and some other Red Bull New York related signings. So keep it tuned to CWTAP. We'll be back with JJ after these commercial messages.
Follow your taste buds to the Pied Piper. Hi there, friends. It's Kevin Carl from the Country Variety Show, and I would like to take a moment now to tell you about our friends at the Pied Piper Diner, located at 1605 Route 100 in Bartow, Pennsylvania. They're just minutes from the Lehigh Valley and surrounding areas, a charming, cleanly, down-home diner that offers a large menu selection, large portions with reasonable prices, home-style cooking, homemade desserts, a senior menu with breakfast and dinner specials just for our senior citizens, all served by our family-friendly staff. Visa, MasterCard, and Discover Card are always accepted. Small groups or large groups up to 50 people are always welcome, but we do ask that you call for availability at 610-845-0000. Takeouts, as well as whole pies and cakes, are also available by calling 610-845-0000. Like us on Facebook and ask about our gift certificates. Also, don't forget to check your receipts for coupons valid for the next visit at the Pied Piper Diner. So again, always remember to follow your taste buds to the Pied Piper Diner. Tell them that you heard it on the Country Variety Show, and one day I'll see you out there.
For the Lehigh Valley, it's in more than our name. The Lehigh Valley is in the values that Embassy Bank lives by and shares with our customers every working day. The Lehigh Valley is where Embassy Bank started and will stay, providing exceptional service for local families and businesses. Get the service and values you deserve at Embassy Bank for the Lehigh Valley. We're the Lehigh Valley's bank.
Once again, make sure you keep Embassy Bank first when you are looking for someone to do your banking in the Lehigh Valley. 7 and soon to be 8 great locations at Embassy Bank. They're the Lehigh Valley's bank. Nazareth location opening very, very soon. So make sure you keep tuned to CWTAP and check out their website for more information about the opening of that Nazareth location of Embassy Bank. Joining us right now, a soccer pundit of the Lehigh Valley. He did social media for FC Sonic for several seasons. JJ Pepe, how are you doing tonight?
Having a great night, Alex. How you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Now, I understand you'd like to talk a little bit of Red Bull.
Yeah. I think in this silly season that has begun, they're definitely, I think, coming out on the short end early, but it's going to be an interesting off-season for them.
It will. I think you make a good point. Short end of the stick. I guess we should probably start with that. It looks like they're going to face a potentially difficult decision regarding Matt Miazga, 20-year-old phenom from Clifton, a homegrown player, grew up through their academy system. And if you ask me, he's one of the top maybe 5 defenders in the whole league right now. His contract coming to an end the end of 2016. They're faced with, do you sell or do you let him walk for free?
Yeah, he wants to go. He's come out, been very clear on that, and he wants to move in January. It's interesting. He's rejected the new contract I was put in front of him. He recently switched his agents around, so the way it all shakes out, if you read the top draw article, is he's now within the camp of the well-known Kai Jorbichin, who we all know orchestrated the Tevez and Mascherano to West Ham deal several years ago. So there's concern on how he's going to go. Would he go through a couple avenues that some other players have gone from MLS? But with his Polish passport, it looks like he's going to try and make that directly to England. And there's rumors abound. Is he going to go? Chelsea might be interested. He's going to go to a top team. And curious enough, the top of the table at Christmas, Leicester City, are rumored to be throwing their hat in the ring, not only for him, but also for Kamar Lawrence. Combined, you're looking at over 50 appearances on the season, and that would leave a big hole in the center of the park there for New York, leaving basically Perenella as the last defender to anchor that back line.
Yeah, and I think that certainly is concerning if you're Ali Curtis and Jesse Marsh, and it'll make you think long and hard about how you may approach this, where, again, you may lose basically your two best defenders. The third one is coming off of a injury suffered very late in the season. You're not sure where he's going to be. Mm-hmm. And then right back was basically a spot fill-in by a midfielder in Sal Zizzo, who really is a wing midfielder, an outside player who was able to just slide back, and he performed pretty well at right back, but that's still you're gonna roll the dice. But from what it sounds like, the money that Leicester's prepared to offer is pretty handsome.
Yeah, especially for a player in the last year of his deal. And if they're going to combine two for $9 to $10 million, especially with Kamar Lawrence, really, I think you can honestly say he's played a season, but he's still very untested. Miazga popped up, about 2 seasons ago. He's been with U23. He's a little more known commodity now, and coming into the full national team. So that's some decent coin for two players. The Red Bulls, since they made their change at the end of last season, which was chop all the big dollars, go from top of the table and spending money to bottom, and to piece together that supporter shield run, now is just going to become the every season deal. They're bringing in these young players. They're going to find a few diamonds. Not everybody will make it, but when they polish them, how quickly are they going to be out the door? And then they have to constantly keep that train going to stay, challenging at the top. Especially when you see a team like Toronto, who spent copious amounts of money last season. Now they're starting to turn their attention to the defense, which has probably been their Achilles heel since they've been in the league. So it seems like now they're starting to turn it around. There's going to be a lot of battle in the East coming.
It is. And I think as you see New York City establish itself a little bit better, there'll be a fight for those young players, especially the ones from North Jersey and New York City, where in the past that was just money in the bank, if you want to say, for Red Bull, where it was just, all right, next kid. Well, now there's going to be a little fight for that, and then maybe to a lesser extent, if Raul sticks around with the Cosmos and they try to develop something there of a youth setup, then that further splinters the game, and the Union obviously have gotten very serious about what they're doing. So some of those Central South Jersey kids, they may be tempted to look at that setup in Philadelphia as well.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of heads being turned up and down, the state of New Jersey, when you have 3 clubs that close together. And then, for MLS, and when you throw in the Cosmos, you make it 4. It's going to be a big battle for players. Where the Red Bulls have that bit of an advantage, though, is their academy has been going longer, and it's been run very well. Over the last 4 or 5 days, they just pumped in a whole bunch of homegrown signings. 4 last week, and then they got another 2 today. And I think that the players that they're bringing in, they're going to expect them, a little bit like Dallas, just to come in and make that immediate impact. And maybe not worry about the draft as much.
I think
you look at the 2 guys they just signed today. Derek Etienne, 1 year with Virginia, they brought him right back. So it may have been a roster numbers issue that he went to school for a year. Then you look at Brandon Allen, forward, scored 28 goals in 28 games for the U17-18 Academy, goes off to Georgetown, starts 4 years. They snap him back up, so they basically got a four-year college player who normally would have gone to the draft, and they already signed him. in the spot where they need some players. Up top they're very thin. Bradley Wright Phillips has been spectacular and has avoided injury the last 2 seasons.
Very
How much
fortunate
longer does that
too.
go?
Very fortunate that he hasn't gone down. And I think we saw that in the playoffs this year. They went down to Columbus, and the firepower, it just wasn't there to come back in terms of what was up top. The midfielders were pretty good this year all the way through, but up top, like you said, not many other options. You had Bradley Wright Phillips and then a 19-year-old. So it was feast or famine. And again, they're very lucky that BWP hasn't gotten injured. And I think in some ways, too, JJ, they've gotten more than their money's worth out of that guy. For what they've paid him, this guy is producing probably at the level of $1 million player.
Yeah, I mean, and to bring him in when they had that, $5 million player there in Henry, he came in, he did the job, and he got some heat. He missed a lot of chances, but for as many as he missed, he started getting them into the back of the net. And this season, I think he was his biggest growth season because he didn't have that fallback of Henry and Cahill. McCarty was there, Grella, who came in, had a great season, but there wasn't that other player to really take some of that burden off of him. He was targeted, he was known from the previous season, and I thought he just did the business.
He did. I think he really stepped up, and I think he had some good help around him this year. I think last year with Thierry Henry and Tim Cahill, even though they were the big names, everyone really did kind of send it forward to feed on him. And while he did step up, and he really carried himself well again this year with 18 goals, I think he was the fortunate recipient, though, while he was being keyed on, other players were able to step up this year. They upped their game. Players like Grella, who you said, probably bang for your buck, the best signing maybe in the history of the league. I know that might be a bit much, but it's probably in the top 5, in terms of what he was paid for goals plus assists equals points per dollar kind of thing. That's probably up there for what he was able to do this year.
Yeah, and he's I think the perfect example of the player that this club has been missing through the history, which is they always went for the big splash, but they never had the role players. And I think Grella really showed the turn in there. Dax McCarty, good player. When he was brought in, he's really stepped in to such a leadership role. Grella came in, did the business. Lloyd Sam has been doing it year in, year out. You sprinkle in a few of these other guys. Now all of a sudden you're saying they have a great core. So now they need to add a few pieces. Because if you notice, when a team stands still, they get left behind. You saw it with Los Angeles this year. Landon Donovan leaves. They don't really bring anybody in. And they start off well, but you figured in the end it was going to catch up to them. They did bring in Dos Santos, but that was a quick shot in the arm, and they just got pummeled the last few months of the season. And you can look at it other leagues. Chelsea won the title last year, signed 1 or 2 players. They don't really play, and they're just getting hammered. And New York has to be careful of that. They will have some turnover. Marsh wants to bring a big core back, but they do need to upgrade in some positions, and they may even need to do a little bit more of an overhaul on the back now, depending on who goes. Right.
I think that probably is a good way to segue into our next point that you wanted to talk out. There's a rumor that a certain Tim Sebastian of Red Bull Leipzig, their captain, may be coming to New York. What do you have on that?
It seems to be, from what I've read, getting closer and closer. He's definitely looking for a move. He only has 6 appearances on the season. 31 years old. They've kind of gone a little bit of a different direction, but when you kind of read that the manager praises professionalism, he knows he's at the end of his shift at the club, but he's still putting one in every day in training. I think that kind of experience on the training ground, possibly even in the middle of the park, if Miazga moves on, that could be severely needed. You always question quality when you can't watch some of these players week in, week out on television. But Red Bull did a really good job last year with we'll say, some of these unknowns that they signed. So unlike past years, now you're starting to give them the benefit of the doubt on who they're finding.
Yeah, I think Ollie Curtis, and I count me at the beginning. Obviously we have season tickets for Red Bull. When he came in, I had my doubts as to what was happening with that club, but he has really hit it out of the park along with Jesse Marsh. And I think when you look at Sebastian, the resume, excuse me, certainly isn't a bad one with 200 plus appearances between Red Bull Leipzig and Hansa Rostock in Germany. You're playing in the second Bundesliga for most of your career. I'd imagine you're a pretty good defender where you were getting regular time, and even at a little bit older age, you should be able to probably keep up in MLS. But, like you said, there's going to have to be some overhaul. Obviously, Roy Miller is out at Red Bull. So if Miller's out and Lawrence is out, that now creates another hole. So if Sebastian fills center back, you still have left back out there as a hole that needs to be filled.
Yeah, and I think, as we get through into January, I keep a small eye on the draft, but I don't think they'll score much from there. Just kind of history. It's a real crapshoot when you're trying to pull a starting defender. So it's going to be interesting to see who they bring in, all these trialists like they normally do. They got to have a few players in mind. Probably just waiting for the window to open. See who maybe is released or who can negotiate a release. Because I just don't see him paying big transfer fees to bring some of these guys in. So it's going to be interesting how they fill these gaps. Yeah,
and I think with Verone, obviously there was a fee involved there. Those will be, like you said, few and far in between. And I think they were never really a club maybe that was keen on paying those transfer fees. And tried to, even with players like Henry, tried to get them on a free agent deal, like you said, who can negotiate their way out of a contract. But they've obviously had some success looking into. If you ask me, they've had some success looking into the Caribbean. The whole league has over the course of the last few years, especially for outside backs. I wouldn't be surprised to see if someone else from whether it's Trinidad or Jamaica makes their way potentially into New York. Obviously, you and I could sit and speculate names all night. We could sit here and go on, Transfermarkt or Wikipedia and look at national teams and say, oh yeah, there's that guy, and oh, I think he would be great. He's got 50 caps, but it'll be interesting to see as they come down into the spring here, what they'll be doing in terms of filling out that roster. I figure probably wouldn't expect a big name designated player unless it's something that will sell so many jerseys that they can't say no to. So for me, that would probably mean, unless you're getting a Zlatan Ibrahimovic or a Cristiano Ronaldo type, I wouldn't expect those type of players in New York.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, they say if they really want that player bad enough, the money will be there. But with kind of the direction they're taking, that's one of those, I'll see it when I believe it. Yeah,
I'm with you on that. And I think just from an on-field perspective, sitting in the crowd, the games were much more exciting this past season, and to just step away from, here where I'm trying to act as a professional member of the soccer media with you. As a fan, it was exciting to go to games this year, just to see how much possession they would hold. Now, maybe some folks maybe miss a little bit of that from me, and I had mentioned this to Mark Fishkin from Seeing Red on the first program. The game against DC United in the summer, where they didn't touch the ball, DC, for almost 10 minutes, was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen an MLS team do. So they're obviously doing something right.
Yeah, it's definitely a far cry from the days of old when they were lucky if they could string 3 passes together.
I think the whole league. I think the whole league has stepped its game up in that regard, because I remember going to games as a kid and my grandfather would sit with us at the time and say, hey, to my father, Andrew, you really think this league's going to make it? And my dad would say back to him, I don't know. This is pretty rough. 8,000 people at Giant Stadium, but the whole league has really come along, I'd say, in the last 5 to 6 years, and I guess a lot of people will point to David Beckham as the key point for that. But it's certainly at a point where it's more than watchable now.
Yeah, and the influx of money is just help raise some of that standard because you can pay better players. So you start raising the bar there. I think the academy system is starting to do its part. You'll be seeing that young player getting even better because now they're not playing a couple months of the year anymore and then having a long winter and spring because they're not allowed to play because of NCAA rules or something else. Now they're in 10 months of the year, and this is what they're learning. This is what they're supposed to be doing. Train, play a little bit, and then back to the training field where they're going to be able to pass properly and you don't have to worry about their first touch, always going 10 yards away from them. And, I think it's just going to keep getting better and better as TV contracts increase. The attendance has been spectacular. So it's going to be good the next few years.
Yeah, I think that you make a really good point about getting players into that professional environment at a young age, whether it's 18, 19, 20. That's a key point in a player's development where you don't want to say it's going to make or break the player, but when you look around the rest of the world, I think that it's a good step for us to take where you can start bringing in maybe, a player like a Matt Miazga at 18, get him that experience because there's an 18-year-old Matt Miazga in Poland or Australia or Germany who's not going to college and then trying to find his NPSL or PDL team for the summer that he's going to bounce around with for 5 or 6 weeks and then have another couple weeks off before he goes back to college. That player is going to be year-round from the time they're 16, 17 in that professional setup. So I think what you said is such an important facet for us, where not just, the professionals are doing it 10 months out of the year. Now we've got the kids doing it too.
Yeah, and when a club like New York then goes out and puts in, New York Red Bulls too, now these homegrowns that went to college for a couple of years, where where they see limited playing time through a course of the year, they just gave them an avenue to sign a professional contract, play 10 months of the year, get ramped up, and they can even bring them in a little quicker now. Maybe instead of 21, 22, they are hitting the first team at 19 and 20.
Yeah, it's I think that it's just another option. And speaking of reserve teams, obviously we'll have the Philadelphia Union's affiliate here in the Lehigh Valley. So maybe we finish up just locally. What do you think that does for the game here in the Lehigh Valley? Obviously, there was a lot of buzz around it in the summer, and they've made some good moves and some good hires. It remains to be seen, I guess, what kind of the long-term effect will be. This year, we'll see what attendance, that stuff's maybe here or there, but does it really kind of galvanize the sport here in the Lehigh Valley, where you have a couple of good youth programs already, but does this provide that path forward for them?
It's going to be interesting because when you take a look at some of the youth clubs here, it's going to be interesting if there are synergies with Philadelphia, because that's where it's really going to need to come from. These players are going to be out of Philly, training in Philly, and coming up for games. So it's an interesting dynamic for this team. And Philadelphia Union have reached up all the way through Berks, up into the Reading area. Now they're starting to come up here. So I think that's going to really be interesting to see what kind of progress there is in those relationships between the youth clubs and Philadelphia Union themselves, seeing how basically they're going to control Bethlehem.
Well, and I think if you are the Union, this is an area you want. You don't want to see Red Bull New York or somebody else come into the Lehigh Valley, whether it's a development academy or, going down to Bradenton, whatever it may be. If you're the Philadelphia Union, and Richie Graham and his staff, obviously, you want to close that hole in the Lehigh Valley and in eastern Pennsylvania. You want these kids coming to you. Obviously, if you look at in the last couple of months with some of the guys who've broken in from the Valley into the U17 and U20 sides here or there, there's a couple of them who are some serious prospects that the Union maybe just missed out on, maybe made an effort, but we don't know about it. But by establishing a little more presence here, it can open up those players to the Philadelphia Union.
It definitely can. It's going to be interesting to see how this first season goes, because the main driving force behind this from the Union side is gone. When Sikiewicz, was let go, he was the guy who was putting this all together, and now, with Ernie Stewart coming in, how are they going to build on that original vision? Is it going to change slightly? So it's going to be interesting the next couple of months to see exactly what they do here.
Right. I think a reset button of sorts has obviously been hit with the Philadelphia Union. Ernie Stewart coming in, it'll certainly lead itself down a different path, but I think as long as they make that commitment to making a footprint into the community and getting out there, they can fill some decent numbers in the stands and try to create that, if you want to say, brand loyalty perhaps to the Philadelphia Union through Bethlehem Steel.
Yeah, and they've got a great conduit. I mean, you go around soccer and everybody's always talking about Bethlehem Steel from 1920s and then the teens and all the teams that won the Open Cups. Well, this is kind of it reintroduced. So, it's a little bit of the team that time passed by, but now they're back. So it's really going to be interesting to see how it all comes together.
It will be. JJ, on that note, listen, you and I could do this all night, but we are running just about out of time. We've got about 2 minutes to go, so I do need to wrap up, but I'd like to thank you for coming on board and chatting with us tonight. Please feel free to reach out anytime you'd like to come back. You are always welcome.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure I'll be in touch soon.
All right, thank you very much, and you have a wonderful Christmas and happy holidays.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. You take care. That's J.J. Pepe. He is a soccer pundit in and around the Lehigh Valley. We'll have him on in the new year once again, of course. As the MLS season gets closer, we'll talk about some of the local teams with him as well, whether that's the Sonic, Bucksmont Torch, Reading United. He's well respected in the local soccer communities. He was also the social media director for FC Sonic for a few years. I worked with him a little bit in 2014 when we did the radio for them. He's absolutely a fantastic personality. If you get to run into him and have a cup of coffee, make sure you bring up the sport of soccer. And again, we've run out of time. We've only got 30 seconds to go tonight on the Corner Kick. So I would like to thank all of you for tuning in at home tonight. I would like to thank our two guests, obviously JJ just with us and the coach, and we'll open things up to calls in the new year for general callers, but we'll still try to bring you one or two specific guests every show, and who knows, maybe the time slot will expand as we get things moving here. If you're a business owner in the Lehigh Valley or Berks County, you like soccer, you like what you're hearing, would you like to be a part of this? Would you like to advertise with us and reach soccer fans in and around the Lehigh Valley and Berks County? Give us a call here at CWTAP 610-967-2799, and we'll get you one of those great Get Acquainted packages so you can learn a little bit more about the station and what we do. And on that note, it is time for me to head on out of here. Coming up next, we have the Reading Philharmonic Orchestra Christmas Concert for 2015. The only place you'll see it is right here on CWTAP, so make sure you keep it tuned after the commercial messages for the Reading Philharmonic Orchestra Christmas Concert. Then we've got the show at 10 with Art Cardos, all about local businesses here in and around the Lehigh Valley. So until we meet again, that'll be next Monday, the 28th. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. Merry Christmas to all of you out there, and I hope that Santa Claus is good for you if you're a soccer fan. Have a wonderful evening from all of us here at CWTAP.